cracks that code, it's over. I mean, it's energy, it's power, it's everything. And I worry too that in the wrong hands that they do that, they keep it from the rest of us because they're so invested in whatever energy sources we have here that their billionaire buddies are going to profit, and they can't retool because they know once it's out on the internet, it's over.
And it's time that we, enough is enough. It's time that we take action. Look, I'm not jumped to the conclusion that I believe that there are, aliens coming from another planet. But I'm open to that. And I think that it's our responsibility, especially when we're seeing that we have a government that is actively blocking information from us. This is the kind of stuff that we repeatedly see. Last year, we were blocked by someone in House administration from being able to receive a full briefing from AARO. So not an elected official, but someone in staff blocked us. I want to cue up a video that I've been given. And as before it starts, I'm going to describe, this was taken October 30th of 2024. This video is of an MQ-9 drone tracking an orb, or this object, off the coast of Yemen. You'll see that another MQ-9 launched a Hellfire missile. That you cannot see that drone. And so I'm not going to explain it to you. You'll see exactly what it does. This is when it zoomed out, so you can still see it traveling. So, Mr. Knapp, have you heard about events like this occurring, and what information might you have?
I have heard about events like this. I have heard about this event. Jeremy Corbell and I talked about it in one of our episodes a while back. We did not have the video, though. There are servers where there's a whole bank of these kind of videos that Congress has not been allowed to see, that the public hasn't been allowed to see. Occasionally, some of that stuff gets out in the wild, and it comes our way. It should be going to you. The public should be seeing this stuff. There's a memo by General Nathan Twining in 1947 when the country was being overflown by dozens of UFOs, hundreds of UFOs, in which he said, look, this is not visionary or fictitious, it's real. These things are craft. They're not ours. They outperform anything we've got. I mean, if you follow the paper trail of documents that they wrote before the military got wise and realized that FOIA really exists and changed their tune and not put things in writing, it spells it out pretty clearly. Said there were 40 incidents where Russian warplanes were sent to intercept UFOs, and they were ordered to fire on them. And for the most part, the UFOs would zip away. 3 of the pilots, though, did fire at these things. Those 3 planes stalled out, crashed. 2 of those pilots died. And after that, the Russians changed the standing order. If you see a UFO, leave them alone. No country in the world wants to say and admit that these objects are flying around in our airspace, and there's nothing we can do about it. Asking for proof of extraterrestrials might not be the answer at all. It's splitting hairs. We don't know where they're from. I don't know anyone who knows the answer for sure. They call them aliens just as a placekeeper kind of a word, but no one in all these programs who've studied this stuff for years, people with much bigger brains than mine, knows the answer for sure. Here, we don't have our best scientists and engineers working on it because they've been told it's nonsense.
That there was a document that was sent between Russia, there was an agreement between Russia and the United States that if they were to see some unidentified objects over sensitive sites, that they would report it to each other. Are you familiar with that document?
Yes, I'm also familiar with the rhetoric, public rhetoric between President Reagan and Gorbachev at the time, too, that they traded statements about wouldn't it be something if we were threatened by something from way outside, how we might work together. I know for sure that they had conversations about it, and I know we did reach an agreement to try to lessen the possibility that us detecting a UFO or group of UFOs would not be mistaken for a bunch of Russian missiles. There were exchanges of that sort that went back and forth. Dr. Lukatsky is an honorable man who served most of his career with the DIA, a very trusted, high-level rocket scientist and intelligence analyst. And it took 14 months for us to get DOPSR approval for him to release 2 sentences on that. He said this craft, we had managed to get inside of it. It had no wings, no rotor, no tail. It had no fuel tanks. They didn't know how it flew or how it was operated. It clearly looked like it was aerodynamic, but he would not go further. He's a by-the-book guy, and until he gets clearance to say more about that, I don't think we're going to hear much more. But it's not ours. It wasn't ours. We didn't make it. We didn't know who made it and how it was built and how it operated. We've got at least one. I don't fault these kinds.
Crazy, right? Like, we've heard that story before from George Knapp. Obviously, there's the clipping from the coverage on it, but to hear it on the floor is something different. Now he's under oath, right? These matter. Now he can be fact checked. Now he could get in trouble if he's just telling stories. So this becomes very real all of a sudden, right? And this hearing was probably better than the David Grush hearing because we know George Knapp has these connections.
Contractors for doing what they were asked to do by our government. They're supposed to lie if people ask about it. And the intelligence agencies who gave this stuff to them, CIA, I think primarily, told them to keep it quiet, and they've done that. And I suspect that they'd like an off-ramp, that they'd like some help with figuring out this technology at some point.
And this is, again, available to anyone, is there a security classification guide for UAP or NHI?
I remember in the 2003 or 2023 hearing, it was stated that all you.
I have a name for you.
Go ahead.
Glenn Gaffney, CIA.
Glenn Gaffney, CIA.
Says, why do you believe that the federal government?
Okay, so basically what happened there was the question right before that question. He asked if anybody could identify anyone from maybe one of these legacy programs. And it was, I mean, you could have heard a pin drop. It was so quiet. Completely quiet. The representative moves on to the next question. And that's when Corbell whispers to Knapp, hey, why don't you tell him about old Mr. Gaffney? And then he steps in, steps in and says, I got a name for you. So I think Mr. Gaffney is going to be under the microscope for the next couple of weeks. I don't know what do y'all think? It's very interesting.
Refuses to be transparent about this issue.
I think there's probably multiple reasons. At the start, when these things first started invading our skies in large numbers, we were scared. It was right after World War II, and we didn't know what they were, and they didn't want to panic the public, and that was probably a good call. What was told to me by an investigator from Congress, a guy named Richard D'Amato, who was sent after this story by Robert Byrd and Harry Reid, he came out to Nevada, tried to get into Area 51, did get in there, looked around, talked to people, trying to get to the bottom of it. He believed that this program, reverse engineering, et cetera, was inside, had been moved inside these corporations. And he said, when this comes out, people are going to go to prison. And he meant people who were basically misusing legitimate national security funds, tens of billions of dollars, in order to keep this cover-up going.
Do you think that any of this is a psyop by the U.S. government?
Entirely possible. I mean, our government and other governments have admitted that they've tried to use UFOs to cover secret projects. I think you got to unleash the dogs and go track down the money and where it goes, because a lot of this stuff has been moved out of government.
Sure.
As you know, Rep. Burchett, it's been given to private contractors, the keepers of the secrets, the private companies that have been doing this job for intelligence agencies for a long time are not going to cough it up. You'd have to force it out of them. One of them is Lockheed. And I'll tell you, I mean, I'm not saying Lockheed's the bad guys. They're doing what they were asked to do.
What happened to the Russians that came forward to you in 1993, and were there any repercussions for them?
The Russian physicist who had helped us introduced all these people wrote back and said there was a huge eruption, that there was the real right, far autocratic forces that wanted a return of the USSR had really go after these guys. They described them as traitors. Nikolai Kapranov, the physicist friend of mine, said, look, if this had happened 5 years earlier, we would be in prison. If it had happened 10 years earlier, we would have been shot. Right. Luckily, at that point, Putin was not in power, but none of those people that we talked to on that trip in 1993 would ever talk to me again. There was an incident in October of 1982 over at ICBM base where UFOs popped up, was observed over this base where the missiles are pointed at us, United States. These UFOs perform incredible maneuvers. They split apart, they fuse back together, they'd appear and disappear, and right at the end of this 4-hour period, the launch control codes for the ICBMs lit up. Something entered the correct codes. The missiles were fired up and ready to launch, and they could not shut it down. The Russian officers were panicking. The UFOs they disappeared. The launch control system goes back to normal. Colonel Sokolov and his team came in, took the thing apart, could not figure out what it was. It wasn't a power surge or EMPs or some of the baloney excuses that our country has given for similar events involving our nuclear missiles. They thought it was a message from wherever the UFOs were from. And that's a chilling thing. I mean, we were a couple of seconds away from World War III starting, and the UFOs were responsible for it.
We were a couple seconds away from World War III, and the UFOs were responsible for it. Boy, that's a headline. But it won't be, because that's going to go against all the stuff about, oh, they're disabling our UFOs because they don't want us to hurt each other or the planet or whatever. It must be the planet, because clearly they don't have a problem with us killing each other, because I mean, you look at the millions of lives that have been lost in war just over the last 2 centuries, let alone the history of mankind. So it does seem like in this instance, almost provoking, almost instigating a war. If these things are super intelligent enough to hack into this thing and enter the code needed, they certainly know what it is that they're dealing with. There's a lot there, y'all. We could do episodes on what that means. Very, very fascinating data point.
I think about AARO, the organization that this body created to deal with witnesses and whistleblowers. I hope I'm not taking too much of your time here, but they invited people to come forward, service members who saw things and had experiences. And I can tell you that the people that I have talked to who went through that are deeply disappointed. There was a guy named Bob Jacobs, who was a lieutenant attached to Vandenberg in 1964. His unit would record missile tests. They recorded all of them. On one of these particular tests, a UFO comes out of nowhere, zaps what looks like a laser beam at what would have been a nuclear dummy, a nuclear weapon, and disabled it. And he is called into the commander's office. 2 guys in suits clip that film footage out that shows the UFO, and he's ordered to never talk about it. He comes forward to AARO. He heeds the call, thinking he's doing his duty as an American to tell that story, and they completely dismissed him. They made up a story that they had tracked down the original footage, and there was nothing like that in it. Well, there was no original footage. It had been taken away the day the footage was recorded. He's deeply disappointed. People like Bob Salas, who had worked at a nuclear ICBM base, who saw UFOs flying over the base, and these missile silos were taken down. He went to AARO too and was completely disregarded. It almost looks like AARO operated as a counterintelligence operation to get people to come in, tell their stories, and then discredit all of them. I can't imagine that any whistleblower or witness will ever go to AARO again because of what happened under the first director, who's now long gone, but still seems to act as the spokesperson for that organization.
Maybe at some point we need to really dig deep into AARO, and I would encourage us.
Oh, I'd be happy to send maybe a subpoena to Mr. Kilpatrick.
There you go. Mr.
My next move, I went into my house after it left. I made sure no one had been abducted, and I picked up the landline. I called the Security Forces Command Center. I mean, we've been talking about this for 20 years. We don't know what we saw. What we saw changed our lives in the way we think about everything. It was incredibly profound. The object I saw, I don't even know if it was an object. It was a light. It was an orb. It didn't look like a craft, but it did look solid. Someone would see a light. They would pay attention to the light. And then the object responds. It performs for you. And then they come down and they investigate you. So it's almost like they're curious. So that's the thing we primarily talk about. Why did it come after we noticed it? Maybe it noticed us after we noticed it. Our installations are visited by these craft. They come in and do whatever they're doing, and then they leave. And we don't know how to respond. We don't know how to protect the installation. So that's why we're here.
When you first heard, and we're having to report on these incidents that were being witnessed by other individuals, did you believe them? Did you yourself believe it would be true until you saw it?
Yeah, these are people I've worked with for years, deployed with. I was in some of their weddings. These are people that I worked with every day of my life. Usually when the events were occurring, we were all together.
It was, how big, wise?
The two square objects were at least as large as a football field. The second encounter, they think it was much larger than a football field. We're talking like flying buildings. The object I saw was about 30 feet in diameter.
And to confirm, you were not the only person that saw this.
Correct.
I think I was also told that there was also reports of this in a police blotter in the area. Can you confirm that?
Yes, that's the documentation that I maintained from the original event and turned into AARO and the FBI.
Okay.
Was there an after action? Was there a discussion by your command? Was there an investigation? It's pretty significant activities that you were involved in. Was there an investigation that you know of?
We conducted investigations in real time.
Right.
And we document all the evidence, but as far as anything from higher up, I don't know if there was an investigation done. No information came down on what we should do.
Were you ever interviewed at someone else's request?
About that incident?
Yeah, about the incident.
I don't believe so.
Thank you, Chair. I yield.
I now recognize Mr. Biggs for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the witnesses for being here today. I'll tell you that today's testimony should alarm every American, no matter their views on UAPs. This isn't simply about UAPs, it's about government.
After you disclose this information to the intelligence community, Inspector General, you're subject to phishing attempts and job blacklisting. How widespread do you think this is across the intelligence community for those who raise concerns regarding UAP programs?
It's a difficult question to answer. I think prior to David Grush and people beginning this process of bringing people into awareness of the reality of these programs and certain things people have witnessed, probably extremely widespread. I think today there's still an issue, but because people are able to come before you and people are speaking out, I think it has been somewhat less I would hope, though, that people would, because if this goes back into closed doors, this is going to get really ugly.
What type of behavior have you witnessed from
What does that even mean? If this goes back behind closed doors, it's going to get really ugly.
former AARO director Sean Kilpatrick, as well as his staff, in relate to this information you provided to them? Did they ever try to classify this information as non-human technology?
I think the staff at AARO that I had met with in March of 2023, I think they were good people doing the job they were told to do. I did not meet with Kirkpatrick. He was either not present or did not want to meet me that day. However, they did classify information about the reality of this subject, and it was very concerning because in my AARO MFR, they had actually referenced a former staff member that was the one who told me to go there, and they probably shouldn't have done that.
And real quick before my time is up, and we might go to second round of questioning just so you're all aware, how important, given everything that you've seen and experienced, is the UAP Disclosure Act of 2025 in restoring both public accountability and trust?
I think very important. I would hope, though, that the 7-year window could be shrunk, my opinion, but very important. The truth needs to be known.
Number 1 in your heart, number 435 on the chart. That's me. Dylan, knowing you testified to AARO, are they obfuscating when they claim to have discovered no evidence of extraterrestrial beings, activity, or technology, and are they lying to the American public?
As I said before, it's a manipulation of the public perception. The statement, scientific evidence of extraterrestrials, is a true statement. It is not the truth about what is happening and what we have.
After filing your Inspector General complaint over retaliation inside the Pentagon's UAP office, did you receive any kind of protection or just more retaliation?
Within the IG or AARO, ma'am?
Either.
AARO, they went after the staff member and classified everything, shut that down. The IG, to this day, I don't even know if my complaint's active. I know my attorney that represented me was very, very, very concerned. And the best of my understanding, I was determined credible, not urgent.
And do you think that experience would suggest that the internal UAP investigations may be compromised?
Possibly. I mean, it's so hard because this goes back to people doing the job they're told to do, and very few people are going to want to give up their careers, 20, 30-year pension, get rid of their kids' health care, get rid of their house. It's possible, yes.
It's not just the protection of their life, right? Which obviously is super important, but it's also their livelihood. You know, once you whistleblow, you can lose it all. You risk everything. You can lose your job. You can lose, then massive amounts of income. Then you start losing things like your house, and then things get stressful on the family, and maybe you have problems with the family, maybe lose them. So it all just comes crashing down if you don't have that security there. And by coming forward and whistleblowing, you're taking that perceived security and risking it all to do so. So it's something that needs to be looked at beyond the protection, making sure that any legitimate whistleblower is also going to survive the rest of their life.
And do you think that, in your opinion, that the equilateral triangle was the U.S. government's technology?
I did once upon a time, but knowing what I know now, I'll have to answer that question as SCIF probably.
My next question is, you teased us, so knowing what you know now means what?
I know enough to know that if you want an answer to that question, go to AARO.
Are you scared for your safety?
That's a complicated question. So being here today, if I say the wrong word, technically I can be charged with espionage. Espionage is a death penalty. Whistleblowers have faced it. John Kiriakou, for example. I am not scared for my physical safety in the sense of a agency or company coming to kill me, but I have no job. My career has been tarnished. You know, I'm unemployed, living off of unemployment for the next 3-4 weeks until that's gone.
Have you been exposed to undeniable confirmation of NHI technology? And then my second question is BAE Systems involved in any way with reverse engineering exploitation of non-human intelligence craft?
Yeah, we're gonna have to have a conversation this SCIF for that, whether I'm legally even allowed to answer that and whether you're even allowed to hear it, sir.
Mr. Borland, why do you think that you faced reprimand and discipline for your effort to come forward and be transparent about what you saw?
About what I saw is the reason why I got into what I know and has been disclosed to AARO and the IG, and I think that information, well, it was labeled an extremely sensitive national security issue.
Mr. Borland, you've talked about manipulation of your security clearance records. Can you identify which agencies or offices were responsible and whether they provided any written justification?
I can do that in a SCIF, sir, 100%. Because of being a part of a multi-agency special access program, I cannot give those publicly.
You testified that you withheld certain sources and methods from AARO due to mistrust. Can you give us some specifics that led you to believe they were misrepresenting the truth?
Any agency that's going to go public and try and manipulate the public perception of this subject in such a way that is negative when I know the truth about it is why I had extreme reservations with it, and also what I've been through and other whistleblowers and people in the know about this subject have been through.
When you engaged with AARO in 2023, you noted that their public statements did not match the reality that you and others had witnessed. In your assessment, what were the key limitations of AARO?
You know, I would put it to you this way. The statement AARO has made is scientific evidence of extraterrestrials. Scientific evidence requires a scientific control. Extraterrestrial is an entity on another planet. The only way to scientifically prove extraterrestrial is we have to go to that planet, acquire technology, bring it back, and compare it to what we have here.
So you're saying they won't let anything out because, or they won't come forward unless they confirm that unless they go to the planet and confirm where its origin is?
That would be scientific evidence, yes. And by that statement, AARO found no scientific evidence of extraterrestrials is basically, I don't want to call it a psyop, but a misrepresentation, because we do have things.
It would
but
be
making that statement
near
is
impossible.
not technically a lie. It's a misrepresentation of the full truth.
So, and also in regards to immunity, which to Mr. Borland's point, we are going to be doing a motion to ask for immunity for you and a few other people to come into a SCIF and tell us what you know without being subject to the Espionage Act, et cetera.
Thank you, ma'am.
When you first saw what you were looking at, what were your first thoughts?
My first thoughts were, I think everything that I was told and taught as a kid and as growing adult no longer, was applicable. If I'm able to see something that I thought defies gravity in such a way, then what else could be possible? From the time I recognized on my radar to the time after the video ends was probably about 5 to 7 minutes. It sped up. I'm not an expert at knowing specific speeds of aircraft just by visual eye, but I would say probably 1-2 Mach instantly into the rest of the formation. I didn't notice visually with my own eyes the other 3 objects until I went back to my radar and also utilized Sapphire to see that, in fact, there were 4 total. And then again, when they all left after a certain amount of time, it was nearly instantaneous. Our mission is to carry out the ship's mission or the command's mission. And we, on a general basis, don't have knowledge of what to do when we see things like this. We just don't. We're there to do our mission and do what's told of us, right? So I think what would be important is giving active duty members a clear way of being able to report things like this to where it gets to this point. I think what the American people should think when seeing that video, along with others before me, is that there is something out there and we should know as the people what it is.
So it's either a weapons program being reverse engineered by our governments or other governments, or it's nobody's government and it's not from here. Those are it. You agree with that assessment?
I agree. I myself didn't bring the video. I just saw the video. When I saw the video, I got in touch with Admiral Gallaudet. That's how I wind up knowing about the video itself when I first talked to the Admiral. And you can hear my voice at the back end of the video, and I was like, hey, that's my voice, and I wanted to talk about it.
Could the behavior that you witnessed, a transmedium object vanishing without a sound, be explained by any known technology that we possess or other governments possess?
It cannot. No.
And has any government agency debriefed you or any of your shipmates regarding the EOIR and radar confirmed UAP encounter aboard USS Jackson?
Once the report was made to the tactical action officer, that's when I made the decision to ask the individual watchstander that was controlling Sapphire to be able to slew into the location. And that's what you see in the video itself.
Do you see any reason why they would allow you access, being present, viewing it, hearing it, being around it? Like, what is this, an accident? Like, does the U.S. government make these kind of accidents? They make accidents, mistakes like this? Like,
No,
we're doing this. We're doing this test of this new system.
The government
and we forgot
never
these
makes
guys were standing
mistakes,
here.
y'all.
Does that sound like something that the U.S. government would do?
Yeah, they don't ever make mistakes.
No, sir.
Describe your understanding of the org chart or lines of control within the executive branch with respect to these topics. And if you'd like to address that in a SCIF, feel free to say so.
That could work as long as I'm legally allowed to and you are legally allowed to receive it.
How much of these alleged Russian crash retrieval documents have already been physically out there? So, I mean, percentage-wise of the documents that you submitted to Congress, what was public already and what was not newly?
Maybe 1%.
Okay, so the rest of it should be predominantly new information.
Yep.
Also, can you just elaborate real quick? I know you had, I think, mentioned a Thread 3 program, but also alleged
So
in those
we've only
documents, I got
seen
through maybe half of them last week. It was a lot, and I don't speak Russian, contrary to what people might allege. What does the Thread 3, was there any specific programs that existed within the Soviet government or groups to specifically investigate this by name real quick?
It's a number. There's a number in those documents I gave you. There was a larger program that actually had 3 sub-programs that was, Thread 3 was the name I got, and then the DIA guys who looked at it figured out there was a much larger organization.
And it's listed in those documents?
Yes.
I'd like to ask the committee to replay that video that Burleson had played earlier. I want to ask every witness here, specifically ones that have sensor training or have been able to recognize some of this movements real quick. So if you guys can please roll that real quick.
Yeah, this is fascinating. What in God's name? Look, it keeps traveling at the same rate of
Okay,
speed.
while this is still rolling, Mr. Nusatelli, real quick yes or no answers. Are you aware of anything in the government, United States government arsenal that can split a Hellfire missile like this?
No.
And do whatever blob thing it did and then keep going? Nothing?
Nothing.
All right, how about you, Chief Wiggins?
Nothing to my knowledge, ma'am.
Okay, and how about you, Mr. Borland?
I prefer to answer that in a SCIF.
Oh, shit.
Okay. Does this video scare you guys? Yes or no?
Yes.
Wiggins?
Yes.
Nat?
Yeah.
I had a different reaction. I was really happy that it got out. Thanks for providing that.
Curiosity kills the
Congressman.
cat. All right, Mr. Borland?
Yes, for
Okay.
I think that if the American people want to see answers, we need to action. We've had the hearings. It's time to take action. It's time that we pass Tim Burchett's Whistleblower Act. It's time that we pass the UAP Disclosure Act. And I think that we've had a lot of talk about this. It's time for action.
And there, Luna straight up calling Kirkpatrick a liar, and herself, multiple other members and representatives, multiple members of the panel, all throwing AARO and Kirkpatrick pretty much under the bus. Hearing Dylan's story was really, God, tough, right? Like, lost his job, lost income, lost credibility. Just a tough road that he took to tell the truth. And now I know why I was having such a hard time finding anything on him, because apparently it has really just reared its head and worked against him. It hasn't been a positive thing. Basically said that he saw this craft take off from the NASA facility, or the NASA portion of the facility he was at, some kind of launch facility. And there is a NASA portion, and that's where he saw this craft kind of lift off. It looked like a light, flew over him, and I don't know, he says cloaked or decloaked kind of, and basically looked like a triangle. There's been a couple other things that have come out. Now, I did point this out. I don't know how you feel about Jeff Nucatelli, whatever. I did find this X post I thought was kind of interesting. If y'all follow me at all, you know that I'm not the biggest Luis Elizondo fan. So I thought this was an interesting post. It's go time, brother. The most extraordinary legislation in history is on the horizon, and the most important book ever published is imminent. Thank you for your leadership and courage at Lou Elizondo. Well, the most important book ever published, that is a bold statement. Hits this thing, and it doesn't... like forms into little pieces but keeps moving, and the missiles, like it takes a missile out almost. Mr. Knapp goes on to say they probably have like terabytes worth of data of videos like this in high definition, clear shots. You can see what's going on, and I would imagine probably even weirder ones than that. That was my initial reaction the day of the hearing, and I gotta tell you, I'm very excited. I feel very good about the information that we got. I feel like it's a step forward. We got a legend in George Knapp, who has been covering this subject since I was a preteen, for goodness sakes. A legend. And the reason he's a legend, the reason any journalist is a legend, is they have good sources, they source their sources, and they keep things off the record they're supposed to keep off the record. That's good old school journalism. And that's why George Knapp is who George Knapp is. And that's why he's been able to cover this topic as long as he has, and for the most part, stayed out of harm's way. Bless him. I think he did a fantastic job at the hearing today, and I think it gives us a lot to go on. Dylan, think that he is a perfect example of why we need to look beyond just whistleblower protections. I think we need to look at some way that we can take care of and perhaps compensate these witnesses that come forward, because their professional life is most likely going to hit a wall. We don't have to compensate him for free. Maybe we put him in some type of similar program working for the government. After all, these are some of the best and brightest minds that have already been working on this stuff. There's options and there's ways forward. What I really liked seeing was Representative Burleson's fire for action. We've heard the stories. We can hear the stories anytime we want. We can read the books. We can do the research. But action is what we need. And the UAP Disclosure Act is that action. Instead of playing checkers, we need to start playing chess like these agencies have been doing. The UAP Disclosure Act is legislation that will bring so many of these things that have been hidden to light. And as I said, and any American would say, we don't want to put the security of this country at risk. That is the number one priority. We need to have a safe country, especially if you want to raise kids here. But to deny a fundamental truth, it's not okay. To not let humanity know the reality of what's going on in our own environment. That's not freedom. That's illusion. Call your representative. Call your senator. Send them an email. If you're an introvert, right? Maybe you don't want to talk on the phone to strangers. Shoot them an email. It's all listed online. You can find your representative's information. You shoot them an email. You give them a call. You tell them. This is important. This is important for our children. This is important for our children's children. We need to know. And we're tired of getting the runaround. Fuck it. You can tell Gabriel Speaks sent you. I don't care. Just make the call. Send the email. Take some action. And let's take this next step forward towards disclosure. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and share it. That's how we keep growing. And I just appreciate all of my subscribers. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think of this hearing. Was this a step forward, or was this just showmanship? Is this another thing where we got a lot of good information, we got it on the record, but once again, the powers that be in the back offices are going to stop any real movement from going forward? Let me know what you think down in the comment section. I would love to hear it.